Okay, we're going to do Eiruv Tavshilin. So let's go through the sugya. It's a Gemara in Beitza, mostly going to be Tes Vav Amud Beis 15b. Anybody wants to follow along in Sefaria. Number one, when do we make an Eiruv Tavshilin?
When Shabbos after Yom Tov goes without interruption.
Correct. When Shabbos comes directly after Yom Tov. For example, the next time that will happen this year, 2026,
Pesach.
is exactly so. Pesach is going to fall out on the 1st of April. It's going to be a Wednesday night, will be the first Seder, and outside of Eretz Yisrael, Thursday is Yom Tov in Eretz Yisrael as well, but Friday will be second day of Yom Tov outside of Eretz Yisrael, and it will go straight into Shabbos. And recently we had a bunch of holidays. Last year we had like three and three.
Well, it's always, Rosh Hashanah, Sukkot, and Sukkot are always the same days of the week.
So we needed to, each of those times, you need to make an Eruv Tavshilin in each of those times. Okay, so when do you make it? You make it Erev Yom Tov. Okay? And number two is what this allows you to do is it allows you to cook, to bake, and prepare for Shabbos on Friday. You cannot cook on Thursday, even though you made the Eruv Tavshilin. You can only cook on Friday for Shabbos because you made the Eruv Tavshilin. Number three, what do we use for the Eruv Tavshilin?
Shank bone.
Okay, so we use a matzah. I say matzah very carefully because that way, if you use a matzah, you can always use a matzah. You can use a matzah for Pesach. You can use a matzah for Shavuos. For whatever it is, you can use a matzah. If you use a challah, which is fine, perfectly fine, just you can't use it for Pesach. In addition, and primary to the matzah or challah, is either an egg, or we would use a piece of chicken or a piece of fish. So one cooked item. Okay, it could be a kazayas. It could be very small, but the minhag ha'olam is to have it be a kebeya, the size of an egg. So that's the minhag Ramachmer, to have it be the size of an egg, even though the Gemara says a kazayas, but we do a kebeya a little bigger. Not that big, by the way, so not a big deal.
Well, that would be 2 eggs, right? Kebeya would be 2 eggs.
Very good. Okay.
I'm sorry, when do we do it again?
We do this
Wednesday
on
night?
Erev Yom Tov, before Yom Tov, when Yom Tov will be on a Friday. Or Thursday, Friday.
You put them on a plate and you say a few
Yeah,
words.
we'll do the whole thing. We're going to go through it. Now, number four, we'll circle back to discuss, for example, why can't you just do bread? Or what happens if you just did? Do you really also have to do bread or not? But we'll come back to that in a moment. So number four is what you do. So you take the food. So let's assume you're doing a piece of fish. So you have the piece of fish, and then you have the challah, and you put it in something. This is just practical advice, like either in tinfoil or like a Glad bag, like a see-through bag. You could even write on a little piece of paper, Eruv Tavshilin. So the reason why you want to recognize what it is that you don't accidentally eat it on Yom Tov, because that undoes it. If you ate the whole thing, then you still can't cook for Shabbos on Yom Tov. So you want to know that it's not for, you can eat it on Shabbos. You actually should eat it on Shabbos. You're not required to, but you can and should, but not on Yom Tov. Or at least not till you're done cooking. So you take it, you hold it, you make a bracha. It's a standard bracha. Baruch atah Hashem Elokeinu melech haolam. Say Hashem's name properly. I'm not doing it right now. Asher kiddushanu b'mitzvosav b'tzivanu al mitzvahs eruv. He for the one who commanded us on the mitzvah of eruv. It is not a biblical mitzvah. It's a rabbinic mitzvah, but you make a bracha on many rabbinic mitzvahs. This is one of them. Okay, and then you recite the words. It's in the siddur. It's in Aramaic or in English. You're probably better off saying it in English so that you understand what it is. And it's something. I'll read it first in Aramaic. V'hadein eruva yehe shara lana la'afuye la'ashule la'tmune v'la'aluke shraga l'sakna l'mevet kol tzarachana miyom ha'tav l'shabbata. With this eruv, we should be allowed to bake, to cook, to do hatmana, which is a form of keeping food warm, to light a fire, and to prepare for whatever is needed on Yom Tov for the sake of Shabbos. Now, there's some variations. If you're a rabbi, you add in for others as well, for the community as well, into that language. But that is the language that you will find in most Siddurim and Machzorim. What happens if you missed out some of the things?
That's why the rabbi says it. The extra words for the community, right?
We'll get to what's the role of the rabbi's Eiruv Tavshilin he does for the community as well. But yes, if there's a mishap, technically speaking, you're covered by the community leaders who have had you in mind. Not particularly you necessarily, but you, whoever you are.
When you say mishap, you think you said something wrong? Or?
If you said something wrong, if you forgot to do it, if you didn't do it correctly, if your cat ate it, all the reasons why you wouldn't have your homework done.
So if you forget it, you're covered?
That's a very good question. Here's the deal. This shir is a terrible shir to go to. I'm very glad it's the least attended shir I've had in a while. And I'll tell you why. Before you go to the shir, if you don't have like a good, solid yeshiva background, you could consider yourself an Am Haaretz, and the rabbi is always doing it for you. It's brought down in the Shulchan Aruch that it's not for Amaratzim, it's for like ignorant people. But once you learn about it, you're no longer an Am Haaretz. So then you're allowed to not do it once, the first time, and say, "Oh, Rabbi, thank God you did it." And the rabbi, because there's a story in the Gemara where somebody came to the rabbi and said, "I forgot, but I know you did it for me." And the rabbi said, "I did, but next time it's not going to work," because he wanted to teach a lesson that it's meant for an accident. Don't make it a permanent feature that you don't do it.
2 strikes, you're out.
Yeah, but if somebody doesn't really, a lot of people don't know, it works for them. If you don't know that much, if you don't really know that you should do it, then it works for you. But if you know that you have to do it, then it only works for you. Not just once. The Mishnah Berurah explains, like, once if you just forgot to do it, but a second time if the cat ate it, or something happened, a hurricane came through and you couldn't find a piece of chicken or whatever, So.
But it's only if you're cooking something on Yom Tov for Shabbos. If you cooked everything for your Shabbos before Yom Tov started, you don't need it.
Still better to do it, because there's a few reasons. A, always something might come up, but let's get there. And B, also, some people say that when you say and to light a candle, that includes like lighting Shabbos candles. Otherwise, you shouldn't do it. It's a machlokes in halacha whether you should, if you didn't do it, if you should light Shabbos candles or not. So really, you should do it. Maybe, let's say you're a man in a hotel. Okay, then you don't have to do it. if you cook in the hotel or even light a candle in the hotel, they'll arrest you. I mean, I'm not talking about a all suite hotel that you have a Shabbos kitchen. I'm talking about a little room with there's nothing to cook in over there. So okay, Mela Ramesha says you could be makel if you really don't have a foreseeable way of being able to cook. Okay,
But
fine.
we're also carrying, right? Also carrying too?
It does say carrying as well, yeah? Or they do bring down carrying as well. It's really a machloikis about, like, it's not so clear. There's a whole question about, like, rolling a Sefer Torah. Like you're going to have a different, you need to roll the Torah on Yom Tov. We like to not show up in the morning on Shul, and everybody they bring the Torah and say, okay, everybody, we have to roll the Torah now. It's not Kabbalat Tzibur, it's not respect for the time. So you roll it beforehand. Peter does a great job.
That's what I'm trying to do.
Yeah.
It's a Turkish keyboard too, if you discover it.
Yeah. So the question is, can you roll it on Yom Tov for Shabbos? Does the Eiruv Tavshilin also let you prepare things? Ordinarily, you don't prepare on a regular Yom Tov. I don't say, after Yom Tov is going to be another thing, and I'll roll it for Matzah Yom Tov. No, I don't do that. I'll wait till after Yom Tov. But people are makel. Not everyone agrees with it, but the bottom line is we are makel to allow you to roll a Torah. Now, number 5. Why do we do an Eruv Tavshilin? By the way, that we've done already 4 halachas on when to do an Eruv Tavshilin and what to do it with and how to do it. Why? Why do you do an Eruv Tavshilin? So I'm going to start off with the basics, and then we're going to do a little more. So there's actually a machlokas in the Gemara between Rava and Ravashi. So let's take a look at the Gemara. The Gemara says, first there's an opinion of Shmuel, which was kind of neglected because it seems like when there's a machlokas and there's somebody who's not in the machlokas, but he makes a statement, nobody cares. You know what I'm talking about? Danny, you know what I'm talking about? Like 2 people are fighting,
right,
and somebody says, "Oh, what about the Jets? Whatever. We're busy fighting. Who cares? No, we're not interested in your opinion. You're not in the fight." So Shmuel says something. He just makes like a statement about it, and then Rava and Ravashi start arguing about what the reason is. So it's not clear exactly where Shmuel fits in. Some people say he actually only can fit in with one of the Baalei Machlokas that we're coming up to. But Shmuel says, again, this is right after the Mishnah on Tes Vav Amud Beis, which basically says on Yom Tov that falls out on Erev Shabbos, you can't cook lechatchila for Yom Tov to Shabbos unless, this is assuming you didn't make the Eruv Tavshilin, you're cooking for Yom Tov and you leave a little over, maybe put a little more in the pot. You're allowed to do that. If you didn't make an Eruv Tavshilin, you could cook extra, but you can't cook just for Shabbos.
a whole new dish.
You can't say, okay, this is for tonight. You can't do it. You have to cook.
But
for
what
Yom
about
Tov.
what about if like you can you do it if you just have like a little bit on Yom Tov?
Yeah. Let's see. What is? Actually, no.
You can't.
No, he has to cook primarily for Yom Tov. If he's really if it's called harama, it's called like he's making a trick where he's just, I'm not going to make an Eruv Tavshilin, and I'll cook for Shabbos, and I'll just pretend, I'll say it's for Yom Tov.
And I'll have like
It's
a
not so
bite, yeah.
simple, because actually in Shulchan Aruch it says you do a little harama now, a lot of harama, like the parameters are not so clear cut, but it's discussed in Shulchan Aruch. What you can or cannot do.
What
The bottom line is you have to really be cooking for Yom Tov, but you could cook extra,
Right.
So, But the real thing is you should make a tashil, you should prepare a cooked dish, an Erev Yontif, and designate it as such, and then you could rely on it to prepare for Shabbos as well.
You have to actually cook it, you can't buy it?
You can buy it. Back then, by the way, they didn't buy stuff like
Right,
we
I
do
know
today. They cooked stuff. In honor of the Eruv Tavshilin, I made dinner. It was a terrible idea, but that's, and Danny's contribution, the vegetables look good. So, by the way, there'll be lamb after Eiruv, because I stuck it back in the oven. But after Eiruv, it's going to be perfect.
Yeah, but did you intend it for the sheer people or for the half?
I intended it for you guys, but I didn't realize how long. I didn't realize how weak our oven is. Anyway, so there's a machlokes there. Beis Shammai says you have to cook 2 dishes, and Beis Hillel says only 1, and that's the machlokes there. And it says in the Mishnah, if you lost it or you ate it, you shouldn't cook lechatchila for Shabbos. But if you have a tiny bit, then you can. So the Gemara asks, that's the Mishnah, Menahani Mili, what exactly is this from? So Shmuel says, the pasuk says, Zachar es Yom HaShabbos l'kadshay. Remember the Shabbos day and make it holy. So he says, Zachreu ma'acha shubal lahashkichai. When do I say remember something? When there's a reason that I would forget it. When do I forget Shabbos? When I'm in Yom Tov. So because I'm so involved in Yom Tov. By the way, just to give you a little bit of a context, an interesting way to approach this Gemara, and many Gemaras, is everyone knows there was a machlokus. For example, when we learn different Masechtas, we learn Rosh Hashanah, we learn about Kiddush HaChodesh, and how they used to have a relay system using bonfires to let the Bnei Agola, the people in exile, know when the Beis Din sanctified the new month, which would then affect which day of Yom Tov would fall out on, what day of the week. And it says Mishikilkalu, Baisusim, or whatever different languages it would use, when the Baisusim or the Tzedukim would interfere and purposefully ruin our way of communicating of when Rosh Chodesh and therefore the Yom Tov is. Because they didn't agree. We always learned in Yeshiva.
They would do false flag fires.
They would do false flag. Misinformation campaigns. It's like everyone's this is insane AI. I'm like, it has always been with us. It's always going to be with us. Right? The misinformation campaigns were happening. And why were they happening? I think it's connected to this Gemara. Why is it connected to this Gemara? Because until today, there's a certain tension when Shabbos and Yom Tov either coincide or go back to back, where the Tzedukim did not like it. They didn't like Kiddush HaChodesh the way we did it, because they said that the Yom Tovim have to be on set days of the calendar. So, for example, they said Min Machras HaShabbos has to be a day after, literally Shabbos. Shabbos Bereshis. Shabbos Bereshis just means Shabbos. Can't be the day after Pesach. But it's not just Pesach. They held that by all the Yom Tovim. They probably didn't like the Eiruv Tavshilin.
And that's the way we do it these days, right?
What do you mean?
We have a fixed calendar.
No. But their fixed calendar, the Book of Jubilee says
that part, yeah.
they had a solar calendar.
Right.
And not only did they have a solar calendar, for some reason they didn't have 365 days, they had 364 days. Don't ask me why. It probably had to do with the way, on the day of the week that the different holidays would fall out on. But I have a feeling that they avoided, what?
64 is divisible by 7.
That is that. Here's your answer. Here's your answer. They probably would have to make a leap year of 7 days every, 20 years or whatever it is, And not 20 years, every 14 years or something like that. Yeah. Oh yeah, I'm not good at math. It would be every 6 years, 7 years. Yeah. The bottom line is that the reason why we make the Eruv Tavshilin is to deal with this tension that's caused by Yom Tov being Erev Shabbos. Something that they probably didn't like, and they probably would set up that it wouldn't happen for the most part because of their particular outlook. So what he's saying is, when are you going to forget something? That's when you have to remember it. So he's acknowledging this. You hear, Danny? He's acknowledging that there's like, I have a good friend, and then, my best friend from high school comes. All of a sudden, I'm like, am I going to forget my friend that's there all the time because now I have a friend from the past? It's a tension. It's a tension between the Shabbos and Yom Tov. So he says, you might forget Shabbos because you're so excited about Yom Tov. You have this shiny toy called Yom Tov. And you're like a child, right? This is like his favorite toy, but now he got a new toy. He's going to ignore his old toy. So chas v'shalom, we should do that. And therefore, in order not to do it, it's a reminder. Shabbos is coming. Don't forget. Now, in that context, that's like kind of the introduction. Now is the machlokus. Now is the debate. By taima, what is the reasons that the sages instituted it? Amarava kadesh yisbar manayafal Shabbos manayafal Yom Tov. In order that you designate a nice portion. Nice portion means a chunk of meat, a piece of fish, like a nice thing. By the way, the reason why I decided not to order from the restaurant tonight is because I took out the meat. It was a mana yafa. It was a nice piece of meat. I said, and you had given the vegetables, and there were nice vegetables, and nice piece of meat. Like, then we don't have to go to the store. We're going to make our own food tonight.
This is better than it usually is.
Thank you.
Healthy.
Thank
Yeah, I
you.
thought it
It's
was
healthy.
very nice.
Definitely healthier. Yeah.
No complaints.
It didn't take that long. That's why it was raw.
No, rare.
Rare. It was living. So so by making the Eruv Tavshilin, you're gonna not forget that there's Shabbos coming, and you just think there's Yom Tov, because if you didn't make the Eruv Tavshilin, you might eat everything up, and you'll come into Shabbos, you'll basically be hungry. You'll have little crumbs. Maybe you'll have a little bit of leftovers, but you're not going to have a real nice, healthy portion that you set aside for it. Okay, on this I have a little something to add. It's a diuk. This is not pshat, so don't ask questions on it. And this is a continuing the theme that we've been discussing the theme of Oneg versus Simcha. Right? Shabbos is Oneg, is delight. The Karasim Shabbos Oneg. And Simcha, even though there's a mitzvah in general to be besimcha, Rabbi Nachman says, mitzvah gedol lios besimcha, it's not actually a mitzvah. In the 613, technically, there's no mitzvah to be besimcha, but there is a mitzvah, b'samachta b'chagecha, it is a mitzvah to be besimcha on Yom Tov. It is a mitzvah. And there's a corollary between the definition of what a malacha is, what's forbidden. On Shabbos, what's forbidden includes anything that has to do with making bread. It's called sidura de pas. It doesn't literally mean making bread only. It could mean the technical things that would go into making bread, which is planting and plowing and harvesting and winnowing. There's a bunch of different malachot that we would do to produce the food that we eat, basically. That doesn't mean you can't peel an orange, but it means that you can't pick an orange. It doesn't mean that you can't cut a piece of chicken, but you can't slaughter a chicken. It doesn't mean that you can't slice a tomato, but you can't cook a tomato, right? But on Yom Tov, we'll leave aside the things in the field. You don't work in the field on Yom Tov, you don't pick and plant and stuff like that. But you can slaughter an animal, you can cook an animal, You can cook food, because the Torah says, and we just read it in the Torah portion. I don't know if you're like, sometimes it's great if you're reading a parsha, look at this. We just read it in Parshas Bo. When it's talking about the holiday of Pesach, you can't do any labor except that which you do for preparing food. That you can do. So the whole idea of like mitoch, shehutra litzarach, hutra nami shelo litzarach, that we talked about for both for fire, for eish, and for carrying, that once it's permitted for this specific purpose. And then we also talked about davar hashav l'chol nefesh, something that benefits you and people in general, not just elitists, right? We talked about all of these things. So
I didn't understand. What was that last concept?
that it has to be a davar hashav l'chol nefesh, something that people generally enjoy doing, not something that only an elitist would do, like smoke a cigar on Yom Tov.
Right.
Is that allowed? It depends if it's davar hashav l'chol nefesh or not.
Right.
Used to be, now it isn't anymore.
Well, cigarettes are allowed.
Cigarettes were always allowed until recently, when the Surgeon General started coming down. So we already had that discussion. I just want to bring that all in for understanding that there's three levels. There's the week, there's Yom Tov, and the Shabbos. In that order.
Right.
Shabbos is the holiest, but it also is in the reverse as well. In the week, you could do the most work. You could be the most productive in society because you could do malacha. Our country, any country, needs its society to be a productive citizenry, whatever.
Citizenry, yeah.
And produce labor, whether you're a capitalist or a communist, they need, production, the means of production. They need the factories to run and the managers to manage, and exactly. So if everyone took a day off, you're going to be in trouble. But if you never take a day off, then what are you living for? So Shabbos is not just that you're not working, it's as if all your work is already done. But let's face it, it's not done unless you do it Erev Shabbos. Mishtach be'Erev Shabbos, Yochel b'Shabbos is an expression. If you do the work before Shabbos, during the week, and on Friday particularly, to shop, to cook, you'll have a Suda. Call the Kal Bashul, make a reservation. You'll have a Suda. You ask the rabbi, you'll have a Suda. Whatever it is, you make a phone call. Go to Fairway, put something in the crock pot. You'll have a Suda. But it's much more than just the simple facts that either you will or you won't have prepared a food for yourself. What it's a reflection on is that there's two types of winning something. One is through a war. You're fighting a fight. There's a competition. You're extracting something from the ground. You're taking resources. You're making something. You're creating something. And the other way, as we were learning about before, is the scientist and or artist who works in the office or in the lab, but sometimes comes up with their best idea when they're relaxing at home. But if they only relax, they wouldn't be a scientist, they wouldn't be a composer, they'd just be another holy schlepper. It's the relationship between the two that allows for the creativity to flow in their day off, so to speak. So Shabbos is representing that oneg, that delight. And it's a reflection of God's delight in His creation when God isn't actively creating as if it was outside of Him, but He's withdrawing to His own inner chamber, so to speak, and what it's like to be God without speaking. Like when you're speaking is a form of work. So you're thinking about what other people, how they would respond or understand what you're saying and what you're not, what you shouldn't say, what you can say, and how to say it. So it's kaviyachol, so to speak. During the week, we say Sheshis Yom Asa Hashem. 6 days God made. He created how? Asar Mamaras with the 10 utterances in Bereshis. Starting with Bereshis Nami Maimerhuth, starting with Bereshis itself. V'yomer Elokim Hi Or, and so on and so forth. Shabbos comes Vayinafash. God, so to speak, he breathes in. Instead of communicating, working, creating, he breathes in. So we're supposed to mirror that on Shabbos. So instead of doing the Lamites Malachos, and the word for that in Kabbalah and Chassidus they use is borer aser. It's forbidden to extract, remove the bad, the psolet, the refuse, mitocha ochel, from the food. So, for example, back in the old days when they had a farm, we still have farms. I went to a farm like 3 weeks ago. It was so fun, to pick tomatoes and peppers and like it was. It's nice to see things grow in the ground. I was like, yeah, there are bugs in the lettuce. It's a free country; they can just fly in, Okay, so you have to wash it a little bit. So, borer aser. One of the things they do in the field is they have to take grain, you have to sort through it. To take the wheat, you have to separate it from the chaff, and then make it eventually into grain. It's not coming. When Mashiach will come, there'll be a tree that will bear cookies, and cake and crackers as fruits. In the meantime, there's a process. And the part of the process is borer, is separating the bad from the good. What that means is we go through life, and we have to, when we're working on whatever projects we're working on, situation's going to come up, and it's going to be like, okay, you could cut this corner, and you'll make more money. But you have to make a decision. Am I going to cut the corner and make more money and disregard the but, or am I going to look up in the Shulchan Aruch or call my lawyer, an accountant, and find out? I mean, obviously, you could find some lawyer and accountant to tell you anything is permitted. It's worse than rabbis.
So
it's the same thing. So the bottom line is Shabbos. So here's now let's reread what the Gemara says. Kadesh Yavara Manayafel Shabbos. Why does it say first Shabbos? Could be because Shabbos is the second thing. I have to pick it first. Okay, could be. It could be because it's the higher thing. I do less borer. I do less selecting on Shabbos itself between good and bad. Meaning I'm not having just like the malacha in general is forbidden. Also, my own struggle with my own Yetzer Hara is that's my weekly struggle. But I have to have the struggle during the week to have Shabbos. I have 6 Sheshis Yamim Ta'avod V'asisa Kol Malachtecha V'yom Hashvi Tishbos. They're in a relationship. Work and rest are in a relationship. So I have to get in order that borer, both the forbidden nature of it and the permitted nature of the 6 days of the week, that will then allow me to experience Shabbos. And the Gemara continues, Umana Yafa Liyantif. But I also have to do Umana Yafa. I have to choose. Borer is also Asr on Yantif, but not the same, it's not as extensive as it is on Shabbos, because Malachas Ochel Nefesh, under the right parameters, within the framework of halacha, are permitted. Borer generally isn't, but the point only is that there are 3 levels that Chazal are being meramis to in this line. Weekday, Shabbos, and Yantif. Or if you want to go in order of Kedusha, weekday, Yantif, and Shabbos. They did it differently on purpose.
And what was the connectivity to, you started off mentioning Simcha versus Oneg. What was that?
So the reason is because Shabbos, the reason why you can do less malacha, the least malacha that you can do, other than Yom Kippur, where you can't even eat. On Shabbos you can eat, but you cannot do malacha sachal nefesh, is because the point is Oneg. Oneg is more solitary, it's more personal. So even though I need to eat, I can eat with community, with family and friends, but it's not as expansive as Yantif. Yantif is Simcha. We learned about before, the Chiddush of the Rambam fits in, the Chiddush of the Rambam of Simchas Yantif, is that you have to include other people in the simcha. It's like, otherwise it's not simcha. A lot of people misunderstand it and think the Rambam is saying, it's like you get a penalty for not inviting poor people. That the Rambam is just angry at you for not doing a second mitzvah of like tzedakah. No, that's not what the Rambam is saying. That's a misunderstanding of the Rambam. The Rambam is saying you don't understand what simcha is. Simcha, Shabbos, you don't need simcha, so you don't have to invite guests. If you don't want to, don't invite guests. Yontif, you have to invite guests. You must, because simcha is shared.
I like that.
Because simcha is going outside of yourself. You can't have it on your own. If you have simcha on your own, you're not having simcha. It's something else. Simcha's kreso, he calls. Your stomach is happy. You're not happy. Right? Anyway, we learned more about that by Arichas a couple of weeks ago, so it's a very, very interesting thing. Anyway, so that's a little bit about a diuk in this lashon. So that's the difference of an opinion. That's Rava. Then Rav Ashi says Kedei Shiyomru Ein Ofen. So that's the opinion of Rava, and the diuk is in Rava. This Torah, this Chassidic Torah. But the other opinion of Rav Ashi says Kedei Shiyomru. Well, the reason why we do the Eruv Tavshilin is people should say Ein Ofen miYantif Shabbos. Really, you shouldn't cook on Yantif for Shabbos. Only with this will I be allowed to, meaning because I already start. It's like so to speak, as if I already cooked, and I'm adding in a little more. Of course, reality is opposite. I cooked a little bit, and I'm going to add almost everything. But it's where the mind goes. You're like I started already. I already prepared.
You're trying to connect it back to Shmuel. You're saying that.
So
that idea.
So they say that only Rav Ashi. Shmuel only fits in with Rav Ashi. Actually, let's see what the Art Scroll says. Okay, can't find it. He only fits in with one of these. The verse cited earlier by Shmuel, which obtained the source from the pasuk, would only fit in with Rava's reason, according to the Maram Shif and the Tzlach. They explain it within somehow, according to Rashi. So actually, it would only fit in with Rava that we just said. Rav Ashi, I'm not saying everyone agrees with this, but that's the Art Scrolls quoting Chronim, Rishonim. So Rav Ashi says, in order for us not to make a mistake and think that it's allowed to cook from Yontif to Chol. Let's say I have a big event coming up, and it's Yontif, I can cook, so I hire Reina, and I have her cook on Yontif for after Yontif. Why not? Hayol, we learned that there's a machlokes if you can or not. There's one opinion that says, so let's go back but by doing the Eruv Tavshilin, it's a reminder that really I can't, except Shabbos is an exception. Now, can I or can't I cook for after Yontif? So we actually learned we learned it in Be'ah, but there's also Gemara in Pesachim Mem Vav Amud Beis. The following it says there, Itmar Ha'ofa Miyantiv L'chol. If somebody, like I just said, he cooks, not even Reina. I go into the kitchen myself. Now I had to cook tonight, so I can cook. If I go on Yontif, Chas v'Shalom, and cook for Matzah Yantif, a big event I'm having, I'm cooking then. So it's a machlokes. So Chisda says if you do that, you get malchus. Not good. And Rava with a hey at the end says, ain't aloika, you don't get malchus. Now, what's the reason? Rav Chisda says you get malchus because he said we don't say hayil. We don't say, well, what if guests suddenly came and then, oh, you guys just came. It's Yantif. Sit down and eat something. I didn't invite anyone. Why should they show up? You don't make a legal fiction to allow yourself to do something. the way Rabbi Schechter explains it is: do you need a machshava or not, or do we think for you? The Chazal think for you. Like, does it require the Gavra to say, I am cooking for guests, or we don't care? That's the opinion of Rav Chisda, says you have to cook for the guests. We don't say, what if, no, like we don't do that. Either
You have
you,
to be extended for Yom Tov, because Yom Tov you have to celebrate with others. You're going to celebrate with others, and you have a variable.
yeah, but what if you didn't actually, you're not
Show
actually
up.
expecting any guests? And
But-
Hayel is saying it's totally theoretical. You know, Tosas asks a question, what about in our time where we have so few people in our community, even if they all showed up, it's like two other people, you know?
Or you have other hypotheticals, like let's say it's 3 minutes before the end of Yom Tov.
Yes.
Can you really say?
Can you say
expect
that?
someone to
Yeah,
come in
and that's some of
7
the poskim say you can't, and that's a big back and forth. That's a very big topic. Rabbah says you don't get malchus. Amin and Hayel. We say that since they could come. So the question that Rabbah asks Rav Chisda is, how do you cook then for Yom Tov Shabbos? Eruv Tavshilin ahin, Eruv Tavshilin ahar. You say Zachiyah malchus. So Rav Chisda says, I have an Eruv Tavshilin. So the Rabbah says, but you're talking about a deraisa. Eruv Tavshilin is a rabbinic law. How could the rabbinic law permit a biblical isser? So he says, Mederaisa, here's a big line. Here's what I wanted to read to you. Mederaisa, tzarchi Shabbos nasa miyantiv. He holds a special limud. From where? I don't know. It's not so clear. Mederaisa, there's an exception. You cannot cook on Yantif for Chol, but you can cook Mederaisa from Yantif to Shabbos. And the rabbis, as a reminder that you can only do it for Shabbos and not for any other day of the week, made you make an Eruv Tavshilin. But really, you don't need an Eruv Tavshilin. So it turns out that Rav Chisda was very machmer on a regular Yantif. That says you get malchus for cooking, if it's for matzah Yantif. On a Shabbos, he says, there's a special limit. We know that Shabbos is different. You can cook from Yantif for Shabbos. Now, why? So Rashi says, D'chsiv achas asher yochel l'chol nefesh b'Shabbos v'yantiv chada kedusha hi. This is the one kedusha. Shabbos is one kedusha. The Tavayu Shabbos Ikri, because they're both called Shabbos. V'lihechi demutu levashol l'vay b'yom, just like I could cook for Friday for Pesach, let's say. Mutu levashol l'mach, I can also cook for tomorrow because it's one holy day. Now, very strange Rashi. First of all, there is a whole topic, I'm not going to get into it, of Kedusha Achas for Shtei Kedushas. It's Negeh for Yom Tov Sheni Shel Golius and for the Yom Tov, the 2 days of Rosh Hashanah. If he's saying the same thing, it's problematic to say it's one Kedusha, because it's a machlokes in the Gemara, and it seems to be the halacha is that it's not one Kedusha, it's two Kedusha. So right away, because of that, Rishonim and Achronim, they say Rashi's must be the reason of Rashi, and since the halacha is not like that, Rav Chisda is knocked out. The halacha is not like Rav Chisda. Instead, the halacha must be like Rabbah. It's because of Hayel. But there are some other ways to learn Rashi. Rashi doesn't mean, he's not comparing it to the other times that we talk about Kedusha Achas or Shtei Kedushas. It's a new Agdara. It's a new thing. In and of itself, it's like saying, just like we said, don't forget Shabbos because of Yantif. What if I told you, when do you have a beautiful Shabbos coming after Yantif? Because you understand that it's just like, if anything, it's an intensification of the same thing. Like it's a continuum between not doing malacha, fine. You could do a ochel nefesh on Yantiv, you could do things in the kitchen, you could cook in the kitchen, and on Shabbos you can't. But it's that in and of itself is part of the kedusha of Shabbos and Yantiv. It's not the same kedusha when it comes to what you can and can't do, but it's the same kedusha that they're like. They're connected. Their kedusha is connected nonetheless. It's not the same kedusha, but it's the same kedusha.
What happens if you
I
cook
know
on,
I'm not speaking English.
on
Which
Yom
one
Tov
is it?
for Shabbos and then you don't eat it because you're not feeling well or you fell asleep or whatever?
Then
You don't
just-
have to throw it
No,
out.
you don't
do
have to throw it out. You never have to. By the way, even if you cook, there's one kula that you should know that even if you're over on Midirabanan, you're still definitely not allowed to cook for Yom Tov T'chol, even if you're not Chayav Malkus. Taka, you're not Chayav Malkus, but if you did it, but you shouldn't. But if you did it, and you weren't even have any trick where you were doing harama, where you said, well, I could eat one egg, and there's no guest to have, you still could eat it after Yom Tov. Yeah. How are we doing on time?
Rick?
Evening prayers.
Okay, Mari Varavin.